What's up everybody, welcome back to Chill Outdoors. This is going to be a seminar from the Jim Vitaro all about how to catch more smallmouth bass. So, if you are a bass fisherman, whether it's smallmouth or largemouth, you can definitely benefit from this. He talks about spinnerbaits, he talks about chatterbaits, he talks about shallow water methods, he talks about what he does when he first gets to a body of water. So sit back, relax, enjoy this video, take in some knowledge from one of the pros. Oh, and by the way, thank you so much to Jim himself because he was super cool with us. He didn't mind that we share his tactics and techniques and he let us film. So shout out to you, Jim. You the man. Enjoy, guys.
Alrighty, we'll get started here. My name's Jim Vitaro. I'm from Worcester, Ohio, professional bass fisherman. Get to travel all over the country. I fish the northern coastas and some of the Bassmaster Opens. I'm also the owner of the fish tanks. So if you see the blue fish tanks around the country, those are mine. How many of you guys would love to have one of these in your backyard or in your basement? It's great, man, I'm telling you. So, and the biggest question I get with these fish tanks is, do I go down the road with the fish in the tank? No, it goes down the road empty. So, and then the fish are usually supplied from the different DNRs throughout the country or a fish hatchery. These fish came from Jones's Fish Hatchery. They're based out of Cincinnati, but they got some offices here in Indianapolis and stuff also. So with that being said, the first bait I want to talk to you about is a spinnerbait. I'm going to talk about smallmouth fishing is what I'm doing. Shallow water smallmouth fishing. How I caught them this past year, fishing the northern coastas. We fished, first place we fished was Lake Champlain, and then we went to Buffalo. Then we went to Thousand Islands, which is the St. Lawrence Seaway. That's on the border of Canada and New York. So one of my best baits that I fished at all three of them was a spinnerbait. I was able to cover a lot of water quickly, locate a lot of the fish. This here is a Strike King half-ounce burner. This is designed for burning spinnerbait just below the surface, and the reason for that is the blades are a little bit narrower, so I can reel it faster. Now, the colors, I don't get wrapped up in a lot of colors. I throw white probably 90% of the time because this is what I have the most confidence in. Then I can switch to a chartreuse and white, or I'll throw a complete solid chartreuse if they're really feeding a lot on perch and stuff like that. Then I'll throw a solid chartreuse. Now, like a day like today when it's cloudy and overcast, I would choose not to throw this one. Anybody know why? No takers? I would throw one with painted blades. Anybody know why that would be? Low light conditions. The light doesn't penetrate the water as much. So you'll get more flash off of painted blades in low light conditions than you do your golds and silvers. So if it's like on a high pressure day and the sun's out, throw golds and silvers. Cloudy overcast, then I throw solid painted blades that way. Now my setup, I like to throw, this is a 7.2 spinnerbait rod by G. Loomis. Throw it on 20-pound gamma fluorocarbon line. A lot of people think that's heavy. Heavy line, it is heavy line, but I don't ever have to worry about breaking a fish off. It's a moving bait, so I can get away with that super heavy line. They don't come up here, look at it and go, oh, he's fishing 20-pound test line today? I ain't gonna bite it. But if he was throwing 10, I would have bit it. They don't do that. It's a reaction strike, okay? So they have a split second to make the decision, do I eat it or just let it go? This bait's, throwing anything in this tank right now is practically impossible to show you the retrieves because these fish are so aggressive. I'm going to try to do it without, when I catch one, it messes my seminar up. I don't want to catch them. I want to show you the techniques. So what we're doing, you want to take and throw this as far as you can, and you want to keep it below the surface like that. See, that's the way it happens. You want to keep it about 6 inches below the surface because it blends in with the surface. They don't get a real good look at it. They commit completely to it. Now the retrieves I like to do, a lot of times I like to use a twitch and make that, I want to try it again. We'll see if I can do it without getting one caught. Reel it, twitch your rod tip, like that. They're crazy fish. That is the best retrieve that I like, okay? But it's also a bait that I do a lot of searching with. I come in with the trolling motor, I'm fishing anywhere from about 10 feet or shallower with this, and I'm chucking this thing as far as I can and reeling as fast as I can, and I'm also looking for them. I'm looking for shallow fish, because that's the biggest mistakes that people think is once smallmouth spawn that they all go deep. That's not true. But it is a pattern. If you come up and you're trying to catch a lot of shallow smallmouth, if you rely on that pattern, they're going to burn you. So what a lot of times I end up doing is I go deep and I catch my limit from 15 to 18 pounds, then I come up super shallow looking for a 5-pounder, maybe catch 2 of those. Now I went from 18 pounds to 20-something plus. But if you come up there in the morning first thing, think you're going to catch them, you might catch one and it's 5 pounds and you don't do good in the tournament. They'll burn you every single time, okay? As you can see, I always fish it with a stinger hook on it. The biggest mistake that I see people make, this is a Strike King 1/0, it's a 1, and they go up to a 2/0. They come with that little collar over the hook eye. What I end up seeing people do is they take that eye and they hook that on that way. So what's that do to your stinger hook? It makes it stiff. So if you make a cast and it's bent sideways, now your stinger hook's off to the side, and your bait comes in, doesn't track right. The other thing is, a lot of times smallmouth will come up and they'll hit it and knock it forward. If you have that really stiff, knocks everything forward. All the hook points go forward. You never get a hook in them. Okay? So what I end up doing is, and I know you can't see it, I'll be honest with you, I take that collar off of that stinger hook. You know, Strike King makes them, Gamakatsu does. Most of the Gamakatsu ones, they don't have the collar over the hook. They have surgical tubing in there. And the key is you want to put that hook on there and then put, like on this, I put the collar, or you can put the surgical tubing. That thing is to hold up, when you hook a fish, it goes up against the barb, then your hook won't come off. That's what that surgical tubing or this collar is for. But I want this thing to run loose. The reason for that, look at them all down there. Every time I make a cast, it doesn't matter what I do, that hook's always going to be straight behind it. I can twitch it, kill it, it's always going to follow straight behind the bait. So if you have the stiff one turned sideways, it could go the other way. That's the reason for it. Now I do it on my buzz baits and all my spinner baits. And once in a very blue moon, I might put it on a chatterbait, depending on how they're eating the chatterbait that particular day. Now there is another little scenario that I do. Get a lot of times what happens is these smallmouth will come up and they'll hit it, and you'll start missing them on this, and it's knocking everything. You can take and put a treble hook on here and always put one of those hooks facing down. So when they come up and they hit that and they knock this stuff forward, you've got that one and hooks them in the side of the mouth that way. But it's a very small little window. When I fished Thousand Islands, the day before the tournament, they were hitting it funny and I was having issues. I put a treble hook on there, I started catching them, okay? Next day, when it counts, I start out with the treble hook. I catch a 5/8 with my first fish. The next 3 big fish that I hook up, I lose. So what I was thinking that happened then was, since that treble hook is big, they were zeroing in more, they would hit that treble hook and knock my bait sideways. So I was skin hooking them. Because as soon as I switched and went back to this little stinger hook, I caught every single fish. And it's just a matter of you got to be able to read what's going on when that fish is hit, how he's hitting it. Is he hitting it real aggressive? He's hitting more up on the front, or is he nipping at it and stuff like that? That could have been my retrieve rate, a little faster than they wanted that particular day. Just there's so many little variables. The difference between pros and amateurs, basically, two things. One, pros have got a lot deeper wallets, you know, and the other thing is we're able to put the puzzle together so much faster than everyone else for the day. Because every day is a different scenario. You got to put the pieces together to figure out what's going on. You know, one of the biggest mistakes that I see with the people fishing is we come in, the younger college kids and stuff, they spin out quickly. And the tournament hasn't even started yet because they come up there and they say, oh, there's Kevin Van Dam, I can't beat him. Kevin can be beat, I can be beat, we all can be beat. You gotta look at it this way. You're not fishing against me, you're fishing against these fish. And if you're able to put that puzzle together faster than Kevin, you can beat. I might know how to catch them a lot different ways than you. You fish your strengths and stuff like that. You know, and then beating Kevin's if you ever beat Kevin, it's an accomplishment. How many of you ever met Kevin? Did you look behind his ears? He's got gills. He has actually got gills. That's how come he's so good. He can relate to these guys really good. The other thing about sunglasses, you know, they're good so they can protect your eyes from your partner because he's always swinging and missing fish and baits are flying by your head, correct? I see it a lot. So that's another reason, plus they protect your eyes from the sun. Now, when you're fishing these spinner baits, I'm going to try to do this real quick. You're burning it back like this, and then all of a sudden you see the big black, there we go, a big black thing behind it, okay? And it doesn't matter what you do. If you twitch it, kill it, and that fish just stays with it, and he won't commit and bite it. You know, what ends up happening, a lot of times that's on a high pressure after a front. I end up switching to I'll switch to a chatterbait. Now it's not as big as a profile. Okay, this is the one I love to throw for smallmouth. It's got the chartreuse to it, it's got the elastic. Now there's been times where I've switched to this, they still did the same thing. And I've only got one more ace up my sleeve for that, and that's been something that we haven't talked about in years. Is then we'll switch to a rooster tail. Now that is a really small, majority of the time you can get those fish to bite that. Alrighty, next bait. How many of you fish, I mean everybody calls these like a Zara spoon. It's a walking bait, okay? This here is a Sexy Dog by Strike King. I don't get wrapped up in very many colors. This is one of my favorites. This is the one I caught up at Lake Champlain in practice this year. This color is called Oyster. You know, it's real similar to a bone color. You know, that's the other color people like to throw. Then the other color, here's one that's more silver and clear. When the water gets super, super clear, then I'll throw this more, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And then remember I was telling you about the spinnerbait and them not committing. There's times when this becomes too big of a profile, then you got to scale down to a smaller one. When I fished Thousand Islands, I caught them on the smaller one compared to the big one at the end of the season, okay? Now, at Champlain, what was going on, they were spawning. How many of you fished for spawning, smallmouth spawning? Nobody? Oh, they're so stupid, it's awesome. Because you can catch him, put him back, and you'll go right back to the spawning bed. 2 minutes later, you can catch it again. So with that being said, this is how I found my fish. I got into the water, into the 7 to 9 foot range, and I fished out on the main lake because a lot of the pockets, the smallmouth had already finished spawning. But the main lake was so much cooler, the better ones were still coming up. The ones in the back of the pockets were leaving, and they had been on bed for, say, 2-3 weeks, and they were a lot thinner. So what I ended up doing is taking a walking bait, the Sexy Dog, and I was making short casts from about here, maybe twice as far as the tank, okay? And because, you know, these smallmouth are spawning, they very seldom did I ever have one come straight up from the bed. I was pulling them from distances. And then I have the marker buoy laying beside me here. How many of you know, if you've not fished for smallmouth on, how many of you know what a flogger is? Nobody. It's not a bait, okay, I'll tell you that. It's not a frogger, it's a flogger. And what it is it's a, you know what those orange traffic cones look like? Tapered? Okay, now if you put your head in the water and open your eyes, everything's fuzzy, right? But if you put your head in the water with a scuba mask, you can see everything crystal clear, right? Well, flogger is the same principle, but I just don't have to slam my head in the water. So what they do is, that you got the cone, it's got two handles on it, and the very bottom's glass. So now I can just, you end up like this on your boat, and you put it in, and you can look all around, and you can see those fish and everything on the spawning bed. If you're looking at them like the bottom here, you just see the bottom. And if it's gravel, you can't see the gravel hard. You might see a rock that's like that, but as soon as you grab that, you'll see those little pebbles. It just makes everything clean and crisp. So what I was doing, I would throw this out, be working it back, walking it, fish would blow up on it, and if he missed it, yeah, like that. If he missed, I'd leave it sit. I'd take that marker buoy and throw it as close as I could to the bait. Then I'd get up there and lay on the deck. I'd lay on this side because I'm right-handed. I'd hold the flogger with my left hand, and then I would take the trolling motor with my right hand and move all around until I could find that fish. And once I found it on a spawning bed. So, or if I hooked the fish with the bait, they hooked themselves, I just got on the trolling motor and just gave it slack line and just followed the line. I would get there, all of a sudden I'd see this sitting on the bottom. It's hung in their mouth. Then I would catch that fish. They sit right on the spawning bed. Then I would catch that fish. Well, before I caught it, I would actually put the trolling motor over top. I'd get the GPS coordinate. So I'd have the GPS coordinate, let's say 124. Catch the fish, wave, put him back. First day of the tournament, I knew I was going to catch anywhere from 15 to 18 pounds of fish because I had all these GPS coordinates of what the fish were going to be. The only thing it is why I said from 15 to 18 pounds, because I had them all over different parts of the lake, because if the wind blew 3-footers, I could not catch them over because you can't see them. Some of the guys were able to, because they do this little trick. They take a golf ball and they'll drop it down and they'll put it dead center of the spawning bed or off to the left of it, okay? So now I don't have to use the flogger when I can see that golf ball, they can just pitch to it. I was going to do that. I bought 2 dozen golf balls at Walmart. First one I go in, I drop it, it goes down about a foot. Guess what happened? Came right back up and floated. So I don't even play golf, and I got 2 dozen golf balls that I will never use because they float. So that's how we caught them that way. So I knew exactly on what I was going to weigh. And I ended up cashing a check. It was a smaller check, it was towards the end. But I'd learned so much about that. Now when I'm fishing these spook, I throw it on 50-pound braided line. Think it's kind of high, don't you? No, this guy's going, dude. Why is it not very high? Well, I use 65 on my frogs, yeah, not a problem. But 50 is definitely heavy enough for this, correct? Could I get away with 30? You can get away with 30. I can't break 30. Maybe you can, but I can't. The reason why I use 50 over 30, 30 works just as well. What's the diameter of 30-pound test? About 6, isn't it? About 6-pound test, right? What's the diameter of 50? About 10 to 12. How many of you fish braid? How many of you get all excited and it goes like that? And you're going, don't tell me you don't. and you're going like this. The reason for that, 30, you'll have a lot more backlashes because it cuts down in your spool more. I use 50 because of the bigger diameter, it doesn't cut down as much. Now does that make sense? I can actually make more casts. I don't have to worry about picking them out. You know, we don't have backlashes. We have professional overrides. Okay? I mean, I've had some professional where, you know, you're going down the bank and you hit the trolling motor. What happens? I've had them so big that an eagle's proud of them. That's how big of a bird's nest I've had. And when that happens, there's only one way to get them out. Two ways. Got to use a pair of scissors. And I usually, if it happens at a tournament, I kind of go, would you do me a favor? I'd ask the co-angler to do it. And if he says yes, then I'm still fishing. But most of the time I've got more than one rod. But no, most of the time you got to cut them out. Braid, it's very seldom you can get them out. Here's a little trick if that happens, if it's not a really bad one, is it blows up. You want to put your thumb on the spool and make 3 cranks. And what that does is it takes those loose loops on the very inside and pulls them back down onto the spool. Now you can turn around and they come out a lot easier that way. That's a little trick that I was shown a long time ago. So that's a little bit about how I caught them up at Champlain with a topwater. Now, Thousand Islands and Champlain, a lot of the fish, when I caught them off the spawning beds, this is what I used was a drop shot. Okay, it's a spinning rod setup. I use 6-pound gamma torque. How many of these fish a spinning rod and use complete fluorocarbon? Do you have any issues with it twisting? If you're telling me you don't, I know you're lying. Because as soon as you put every time that you go like this, and you do that, you put a little twist in it. So if you want to use straight fluorocarbon, you flip your bail like that, pull it tight, and you won't have as much twist. But as soon as you start fighting the fish and take and drag, it's twisting the whole time. When you take fluorocarbon and you do that, and it's twisted, what happens? Pukes right off your rib. See mine? Braid will never twist. It'll never puke off your line, no matter what. This is 6-pound braid, then you put I use a double uni knot. Is that the best knot to tie? It is for me, but there's the Alberto knot and the Albright knot were really good knots. The reason why I don't use them? I don't know how to tie them. I haven't took the time. The double uni is what I use. Now they got this, there's another G knot. It takes a lot of time, and that's the difference between those knots and the double unis. They're smaller knots, so they come through your guides a little bit better. If I'm doing a shaky head, then I'm only putting maybe 3 to 5 foot leader, so I don't have to worry about this knot coming through the guides. Fishing the Great Lakes, drop shotting and stuff, then I put a 10 to 14 foot leader, because by the end of the day, I've broke off enough, as in weight, or I've hopefully caught enough big fish that I've retied, and my leader becomes shorter and shorter and shorter. Now, what I was doing was I was looking at them. I found a little needle in the haystack. I located these fish with a spinnerbait, and what it was, I was fishing milfoil patch, and then they'd have these great big white sandy areas, and then all of a sudden you'd see a fish swim across them. And what you do, I've noticed my co-anglers, the biggest mistake when that happens is they'll see that fish, they'll throw right at that fish. What happens when you do that? Spook them. Gone. You got to lead those fish. So basically you throw it about 10 feet in front of that fish, because if they seen you, they wouldn't bite. And the biggest mistake I see my co-anglers do is they sit there and start shaking the bait. That fish would come up and turn right off of it. Well, basically all you do is sit there and hold it. What little current or anything that's out there, if this thing wants to float, it just kind of moved like that. They never crushed it, they just come up, sucked it in, set the hook. Now the nice thing about a drop shot bait, you lose very little fish on it. I like, this here is a rebar hook. Aaron Martin's designed it. It's nothing special. It's a Gamakatsu hook, and they put a little hook, little barb on it so you can rig things Texas style so it doesn't pull off. I like a straight shank hook because it takes very little for me to pull that this shaft starts coming out of their mouth. And with it being so small, it doesn't take much for it to penetrate through their mouth, and you hook them better that way. Now when I fished, caught them 1,000 islands on this one, went to the Detroit River the following week, I couldn't get them to bite this at all. I had to use the bigger one, which was the Arkansas Shiner. And the difference was, this looks like a goby. You don't see very many big gobies up at 1,000 Islands anymore because the smallmouth has hammered on them so much and dropped the pop. You see a lot of little ones. Very seldom do you see a goby this big anymore. Now you go to the Detroit River, what was happening was there was so much current and stuff, the lake shiners were being pushed down the river. So they were feeding on this bigger one. I couldn't hardly get touched on that one. Just a matter of a few miles, well, it wasn't exactly a few miles, but that's the thing. You got to match what was going on, what they're feeding on to get the best results. And then the last bait I'm going to talk to you about is a bait. Can be a very frustrating bait. And I'll tell you that you'll lose a lot of fish on it. But you'll also, this little bait in the right scenario will get you a few more bites than no other bait will. How many of you ever fished on the backside of a front, high pressure, you're catching them slowly here and there, and then all of a sudden the wind stops? Now you can't get bit at all, right? This here is called a spy bait. It's a really simple little bait. This is a number 8. This is the 80 version, and they make a 90. They've cut those are the two sizes I fish. They come out with a 110, which I've not used it yet, but it's just going to be, the difference between an 80 and a 90 is a little bit bigger. It sinks a little bit faster, and I can reel it a little faster that way too. The 80 is what I use probably 90% of the time. I basically fish 2 colors for smallmouth. This one here looks like a perch, doesn't it? That's what I kept on telling everybody until 2 weeks ago. The official name of it is called Ghost Gill. And then this one here, I thought looked like a goby. They call it Emerald Shiner. Okay? These are the 2 baits that I fished religiously for smallmouth. St. Clair, I throw the perch because they eat a lot of perch up there at St. Clair. 1,000 Islands, I use the Emerald Shiner more. Now I throw it on about 10-pound test fluorocarbon. I like, well, most people throw it on a spinning rod. I like a bait caster. I would rather catch fish on a bait caster than I would a spinning rod. I got more control. This is a crankbait rod is what I've set it up with because you're not going to set the hook on them. And then I've got a gear ratio of 6-to-3 gear ratio for this. This is a simple bait. All you're doing is when the conditions get to where it's dead slick, they're very lethargic, they just don't want to bite. Everybody has been in that situation, I know that. You just cast it out. I was fishing in 8 foot of water. I would just reel it real. It's very hard to demonstrate it. This is not how the smallmouth bite it, I'll tell you that now. Oh, my hooks are turned down, and isn't that amazing? I got my hooks completely turned down, he still hooked himself. You know, if that's the tournament, that fish would have been gone, right? How many of you guys watch Roland Martin? How big's this fish? It's 8 pounds, right? course, he's got 2 little hooks. I mean, there's no room. And with them being bent down makes it even harder getting them out. There we go. We got an idea how that bait comes. That's all you do is just throw it out and reel it in. And what it does is it shimmies back and forth like this. The problem is with it, it only has number 6 hooks on it. That's the size. So what ends up happening is if they don't crush it, which smallmouth very seldom do in this situation, they just follow it. And then they come up and they nab the back of it like a bluegill bite. Well, the first thing everybody wants to do is just go, that's common. Everybody wants to do that. What you end up doing is you'll end up taking that bait from them and you'll skin hook them. What you have to do is continue to reel and just kind of lean into them a little bit, and hopefully that little number 6 treble hook gets further back in their mouth, okay? So I know what you're thinking. Just change the sizes of the hooks. That's what you're thinking, right? Changes the action of the bait. The only thing that you can do, you can take, since there's 6s, you can take the back one and change it to a 5. And it's got to be a light wire hook, because once you start going to those heavier hooks, then you're dealing with weight, changes the action of the bait. Now the other thing that I have done that I've noticed make a world of difference, where you attach your hooks, they all have split rings, right? The back one, I add an oval split ring. So there's already a split ring on it, I add another one. It allows that hook to be a little further back away from that bait. It ends up, I'm able to hook up with a lot more fish that way. Because they come up, and they grab it, it's further back in their mouth, I can hook them. Because as soon as you hook a smallmouth, especially shallow water, and he's on a distance of a cast, what happens? They jump right away. How many of you ever notice if you hook one and you get him underneath the boat, does he jump? No. He stays down and digs the whole time. So what I end up doing with this bait is I make my cast, all of a sudden I hook him, I just keep enough pressure on him, and I chase him down with the trolling motor. Because I want to get over top of him. I don't want him to jump. I want to be able to get over top of him, get my guy beside me with the net, and then I'll bring him and force it, because then he'll stay down, and I can keep a tight line on him. He doesn't get that leverage when he wants to jump. Now, if you're largemouth fishing, like I did in the Costa National Championship, I didn't lose a single one. Different scenario. I'm fishing largemouth. They were schooling, and I actually used a different color. That was a neat little deal, because I was catching them on top with a spook and an A-rig and whopper plopper, and then all of a sudden everybody was figuring them out. All the pressure got on them. Nobody could catch them. So me, from being up north going, okay, I ended up catching them on this one, which I was able to oversize the hooks by one on each one, and I put a bigger split. But the thing is, with largemouth, you see how they attack this? They're aggressive. So they were getting both hooks in their mouth, and that's how come I wasn't losing. Smallmouth, when it gets dead slick, opposite. They become very, I guess you could say, picky, and they really don't want to bite. They just follow it, and then they finally commit to it, but they don't eat it. They just, oh, that's an easy meal, just feed up and grab it a little bit more. So that'll conclude my seminar. If there's anything you want to see that I talked about, or any questions, be more than willing to answer them. I'll show you down here. I want to thank you for coming out to the Indianapolis Sport Travel and Boat Show, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon here.